Welcome to today's episode of SRG Insights, where we answer your questions about sales, sales management, and sales training. And today's question is...
George Brontén, founder of Membrane.com, asks, how do you help your sales team qualify or disqualify opportunities?
That is really a great question, and it gets to a real problem that exists in many sales organizations, that salespeople spend too much time on opportunities that aren't currently qualified, and they don't necessarily know what steps to take to qualify those opportunities. So acknowledge that it is a real problem, and certainly disqualifying those opportunities that aren't qualified and aren't going to be qualified anytime soon, and kind of move those out of the pipeline. I also think it gets to one of the most rewarding aspects of being a sales manager, which is coaching. And the type of coaching that we're talking about here is really what I would call opportunity coaching, or is often referred to as deal coaching. And the reason that's rewarding is you're able to work with your salespeople to help them improve their win rates and advance their deals they're working on more rapidly through the sales pipeline. This is also a topic we cover in our new book, The High Impact Sales Manager. As you think about the opportunity coaching, what you want to make sure is that you approach this in a very constructive way. In other words, it shouldn't be an interrogation. I think if it's an interrogation or the salesperson feels that they're going to be in any way intimidated, they're going to stop bringing opportunities to their sales managers. And what a manager really needs to do is think about, what questions do I want to ask to help the salesperson gain the skills to start qualifying their own opportunities, because you're certainly not going to be there for every single opportunity. And with that, I want to get to some very basics that I covered in a prior episode of SRG Insights, and that's the concept of BANT. And BANT stands for budget, authority, need, and timing. So let's start with the first one, budget. Is there an identified budget associated with this opportunity? Authority, is the person you're working with, do they have the authority to approve this opportunity? Need, is there a truly compelling business need that's been identified within the organization? And timing, how soon are they looking to solve this problem or to address this opportunity? So always keep in mind BANT kind of as the preliminary qualification criteria. But if it was really that easy and every deal was either BANT qualified or not BANT qualified, you'd only be working on a fraction of total opportunities. The reality is many deals that you'll want to continue to work on do not necessarily meet all these criteria. So you want to kind of go one step deeper when you think about opportunity coaching, figure out which of the BANT criteria it meets, and then here's a series of questions you can ask that really get to the heart of opportunity coaching. And so that first question is, can the salesperson succinctly share with you what the customer's business need is? So ultimately, selling is about either solving a business need in a compelling way or helping a company address an opportunity in a compelling way. And the problem with a lot of opportunities is there may be a very weak need or there may be a very marginal opportunity. But if the opportunity is not compelling, it may be that it's just easier for the customer not to solve it and maintain the status quo. So here's a coaching point. Let's say the salesperson can't share with you exactly what the opportunity is. You might work with them on questions they can ask the customer to really better understand the business need or opportunity. And then based on that, your evaluation of that need or your mutual evaluation of that need, you can decide whether this is an opportunity you want to continue to pursue. The second question you want to ask is, what is the unique value that your sales organization is bringing to that customer? So potentially there's a need that's compelling or an opportunity that's compelling, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're positioned to address that opportunity. So can your salesperson clearly articulate how their solution best addresses the customer's opportunity? If they can't, there's more work to be done. A key coaching point here would be helping your salesperson develop a value proposition that directly, in 2 or 3 key points, addresses the customer's business need or their opportunity. So again, really working on the value proposition so that you're addressing the business need of the customer. A third question you should ask is, who are the decision makers and are you currently working with them? So in other words, does the salesperson know how the decision is going to be made? This really gets back to the BANT qualification of authority. So they may be working with an influencer, and that's good. And then are there other influencers, and which of those influencers can help them identify who the decision makers are? So they need to be able to reverse engineer for you, either now or in the future, exactly what the decision-making process will be. And a key way to do that is to start mapping the organization, particularly on a complex sale, figure out who are the key stakeholders, who are the key influencers, who are the key decision makers, and make sure that you have an access strategy. Because ultimately, salespeople often spend a lot of time and then find out that the key decision makers maybe have another vendor in mind, or maybe have a whole different solution in mind. So again, understanding who's going to make that decision and how you're going to gain access to them is very important. The coaching point I would offer here is really mapping the organization and determining which influencers you can get to who can ultimately get you to those decision makers as early as possible in the sales process. A fourth question is how will the competition try and beat you? So there's an identified business need, you have a value proposition that gets to that need, you have access or you have a plan to get access to the decision makers, but you have to think about who are you competing against, because is your solution really the best solution? And I think it's very fair to ask the customer, have your salesperson ask the customer, can you share with me who we're competing against for this opportunity? And they may give you those names, in which case you have some really good competitive intelligence, and they may not. In either case, assuming they do, first, let's kind of go with that case. What you want to do is really, as objectively as possible, outline what are your competitive strengths and weaknesses, and then start putting together some discussion points that really play to your strengths. So you're starting to really highlight the areas that you have a competitive point of differentiation that you can bring to your customer. And I think the coaching point here is really work with the salesperson, particularly if you know who the competition is, on the strengths, maybe also analyze where you've gone up against that competitor before and what kind of some of the win themes were, or if you lost in the past, maybe really understand why you lost and what you could have done differently. In many cases, though, the customer won't share with you who the competition is. In that case, just use your industry knowledge, kind of know who the top tier players are, and still kind of go through the same type of analysis, just assuming that you're going to be competing against the people you compete with most often. And then the last question you should ask is, why will we win? And this is really important. It gets to two key points here. One is, can the salesperson share with you exactly why you're going to win? And they should basically have what their win themes are. And is a salesperson confident when they explain them to you? So you're trying to get to, do we really have really good win themes that are going to allow us to win? And is the salesperson you're working with confident that they can, in the way they're presenting them? Because they're confident presenting it to you, it's a pretty good bet they're going to be confident when they present them to the customer. Coaching point here, if the win themes aren't strong, you probably need to go back and really look at the 4 prior questions in terms of the need, the value you bring in terms of how you solve the problem, who the decision makers are, your competitive points of differentiation, and then come back and develop stronger win themes. So the really rewarding part of this, as I mentioned before, is that this is an opportunity to really train your salespeople. So you're coaching them, but also training them to kind of go through this analysis on their own. If they understand that you're initially going to look for BANT and then ask these 5 questions, they're going to start doing that whether you're actually coaching them on a particular deal or not, and you're going to find out they're going to spend much more time on those opportunities that are qualified and maybe disqualify some of those much earlier than they would have normally. Again, these are topics we cover under the coaching section of our book, The High Impact Sales Manager, and we look forward to future episodes of SRG Insights.